So hello everybody, greetings from Spain to wherever you are watching this video. This is Dani Villanueva and it is an honor for me to be part of this Christian Life Community worldwide meeting. I have 15 minutes to try to encourage you to think on how we as Ignatian family are invited to build the kingdom through networks. And I would love to start from the importance of the perspective. I think this is key in Ignatian spirituality. What is our angle to approach reality? And we can find the answer in the spiritual exercises, the contemplation of the incarnation, that I'm sure most of you know about it already. Ignatius invites us to contemplate the world in its wholeness, from above with the Trinity, looking to the complexity and diversity of humanity, where some people are dying, some are being born, some people are crying, others are laughing, some people are rich, others are poor. That is a way of looking to the world that was very unusual in that time, an integral vision of the world. And it is to that world, from that perspective, where the Father is sending the Son accompanied by the Spirit in a mission of reconciliation. This is the perspective of understanding reality for Ignatian spirituality. And this is also the angle and perspective of most of our Jesuit decrees about the mission. And I think this is why the first companions, the first Jesuits, understood very quickly the call to go wherever was needed for the greatest glory of God, ad majorem Dei gloriam. Or why Nadal, in that early stages of the society, when he was explaining the different Jesuit houses, he was saying that the journey was one Jesuit house, and through the journey, the world became our home, and I'm sure you have heard about it. Also, I think that even our fourth vow of obedience to the Pope regarding the mission is somehow a way to assure this openness to the universality, being able of answering the needs of the universal church beyond any particular diocese. And I think that this is why during the life of Ignatius, the society expanded so quickly, and there were Jesuits present already in all the continents in the world before Ignatius died. This has, to my understanding, two main consequences for us today. First is that we have a call to look the same way that God looked to the world in its wholeness, humanity as a whole, transcending borders, understanding diversity and multiplicity as richness. Any other particular angles should be understood from this universal perspective. We are experts in enculturation. Our roots are in the local culture, people, needs, but our vision, understanding, and sense of mission are always looking for God's perspective. And the second call is a consequence of our conviction that God dwells in creation, that God is already present, that we don't carry Him, but He's calling us to collaborate in the building of the kingdom. God is in reality, and we have a call, a vocation to collaborate with Him, and therefore transformation is possible. That's why we are optimistic about the possibilities of reality and humanity, and that's why we think justice is an undeniable dimension of faith. So I know you were expecting me to talk about networks, but I should start from here. We have a vocation to embrace reality from the wider possible perspective. We as church, as Catholic Church, as Society of Jesus, as Ignatian family, we have a mission that is universal. And also, we have a transformative vocation with the aim to transform, to have an impact, to help reality and humanity come closer to what they were created for. If this is our framework for the mission, we need a way to face complexity, taking into account the diversity of perspectives that are present in our reality that cannot be answered from just one angle. Also, if the Spirit is expressing Himself through those realities, we need to be able of having real global conversations, spiritual conversations. Otherwise, it is impossible to discern at that level. And if we really want to answer from the Magis, we should put into action the multiple capacities that we have in people and institutions around all the apostolic body. I think this is why since 2016, we, the Jesuits, have discernment, collaboration, and networking as three key perspectives of our contemporary way of proceeding. Networks are structures that facilitate collaboration, and through that collaborative culture is how we somehow become a discerning body that answers and adapts as it listens and understands what is the next call that is coming from the Spirit that speaks from all corners of reality. That is why I think networks are like the veins that make our Ignatian family flexible and create the capacity to discern and collaborate. Networks, don't get me wrong, that do not substitute hierarchies, but open them to new possibilities and apostolic response that today we cannot even imagine. So, through the creation of networks, we are wiring the apostolic body as we speak. We are creating the possibility for future apostolic answers. So if we really want to develop our maximum apostolic potential, I really think we should seriously consider the organizational question, the structural question as key element in our apostolic discernment. So let me give you some examples of why networks are so important in our building of the kingdom into the future. First, networks allow us to create new possibilities for the mission. For example, mixing the presence of GRS at the refugee camps with the capacities for distant learning that are in our Jesuit universities, suddenly we can open up a new whole ministry that it is to offer tertiary education for people in forced migration, a new apostolate as an explore area of mission where suddenly, thanks to networks, we can create value and expand our impact. Another example is networking as a way to develop new levels of agency, impossible to reach otherwise. For example, Eco-Jesuit, a network on the theme of Jesuits in ecology and spirituality that is helping us not only to understand where is our common thinking and the ongoing projects on the topic, but also the possibilities of concerted global action around, for example, the United Nations COP meetings. Another example are networks as a place for generosity and real engagement. La Red Jesuita Migrantes Centroamericana and the Ignatian Solidarity Network in the United States, for example, working together in this hospitality campaign, where through action and decentralized mobilization are witnessing the possibility of fraternity, inclusion, and personal commitment against the discourses of hate and fear around migration. Networks certainly allow us to lead change in an organic way, exploring new transformative practices like communities of hospitality or specific campaigns before they scale up in our different contexts. Another example is thinking on networks as a space to pray and activate our universal body in spiritual conversations. I think you are aware that especially during this pandemic time in the last year and a half, we have activated 3 times already for global prayers, the whole apostolic body. First time was last year during the Pentecost feast. Then in October, Breathing Together Vigil, if you remember, and then a couple of months ago, the beginning of the Ignatian year. I think this is impossible to think about it without the networks. Another example is how networks allow us to listen and to learn even through complexity. Fe y Alegría is probably the largest and longest-standing functioning Jesuit network. And when we were with the Pope in 2019, he told us that if we wanted to innovate, we shouldn't be managing the network, but listen to the youth. And we are creating an unprecedented youth movement that is really renovating our expectations for the future. This is only possible through network effects and network dynamics and network strategies. I think also a step further from listening is to think on networks as structures that facilitate discernment. After GC36, during 3 years, all our networks have been activated to listen and discern around the universal apostolic preference that came up in 2019 as a result of a global conversation not far from the concept of synodality that is being promoted by Francisco these days. You really need networks for this. Another example is networks as tools to advocate and leverage our capacity to denounce and claim for justice. This is the case of the Global Ignatian Advocacy Network, the GIAN networks, promoted by the Social Justice and Ecology Secretariat. Another recent example could be the movement around the incarceration and martyrdom of Father Stan Swami that I'm sure you all have been part of. We can be heard much loudly and with much more impact thanks to the network dynamics. And in general, I want to say that networks allow us to create global corporate processes and dynamics that are impossible otherwise. The best example, I think, is in the secondary and pre-secondary education, Educate Magis. Starting in 2012, 9 years ago, they have created a global network of Jesuit schools with a map that I'm sure you have seen everywhere, fostering a sense of belonging that even is narrowing an action plan present in all the schools in the world. They just finished their international gathering a couple of weeks ago. Amazing. So we have all the ingredients. Don't tell me that networks are just operational structures. They are opportunities to channel a new culture of collaboration and collective action that allow us for new apostolic responses. Our impact in the future relies not in the creation of new institutions, but in the creative combination of the existing ones. We have all the ingredients already. Collaboration and networking expand the possibilities of our mission. Our current limits are not technical or technological, but probably rely on our capacity to listen, to understand what is happening, and to project the future, and the ability to lead that change with creativity. This is where we need help. I think now we can understand much better why Adolfo Nicolas was already emphasizing in 2010 that interconnectedness is the new context for understanding the world and discerning our mission. This is especially important for our Ignatian family, where we share spirituality, identity, and sense of mission. I would love to encourage all of you to think on the importance, the tremendous impact that the development of networks and collaborative structures could have in our common apostolic body, in our common mission. I'm not thinking just in the Society of Jesus, but also in the Christian Life Community, the World Union of Jesuit Alumni, Alpha Sigma Nu, and all the networks that align naturally around the Jesuit mission. You can check the Jesuit.network website, where we have identified more than 80 of those networks. You are invited to be part of this dream of creating conditions of possibility for new apostolic impact in the future. So this is a long way to say why collaboration and networking are such an important part of our way of proceeding as Church, Society of Jesus, or Ignatian family. So my final question for your reflection and sharing, it is: how is all this potential talking to you? To what extent are you using your talents, your gifts, your life, your vocation as part of wider processes that will impact the world much farther and much deeper, that you can do with your own efforts and your own vision? I'm sure we all think of ourselves as a small but important piece of God's plan for the kingdom. The question is, how do you think spiritually and strategically about your life, and what structures and dynamics are you promoting or are you part of? Networks are key elements to open up the mission, but also key elements to leverage our individual capacities into systemic impact. So my final question is very simple. To what extent are you ready to be part of something bigger than yourself? If you think that you should play to your strengths, I think this question is a must. And discernment, collaboration, and networking are part of the answer. Thank you.